Yep, the meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this very short and intense, hopefully, in terms of content session on how the EU can help to address digital challenges in Africa, indeed very challenging. We would like to warmly welcome you to this meeting, which is hosted by the European Digital Development Alliance, EDDA, and the European Future Forum. My name is Julius. I'm part of the European Future Forum, and I would like to warmly welcome you today. We are going to try to make this as interactive as possible, despite the lack of time and despite the lack of physical presence, which is why we're going to use Slido, which I'm sure most of you already know. And I'm going to send the link and the code that you can use to ask your questions right now into the meeting chat. You give me a moment so you can find this here. The Slido is already active, so feel free to already start asking your questions, and we are then going to look at the Q&A, at the questions for the Q&A session, and try to respond to as many as possible, even though we will probably need to reduce the number of questions. I would like to hand over to Dominik Kirchdorfer, the president of the European Future Forum and the co-host of today's event.
Hello and welcome everyone. Very happy to see this many people attending. Apologies, I'm a bit sick, so I'm losing my voice. But one second. Typical. Well, at least I'm not going to have to talk too long because we have an amazing panel full of amazing panelists. So I'm only going to talk for a very brief amount of time. The European Future Forum is very happy to be cooperating with EDDA on this particular topic, as it serves two of the three cross-section big societal topics that we are working on a daily basis to inform the future of Europe, which are climate change, digitalization, and humanity. So we're working on digitalization and humanity issues today. And I'm just going to leave you with one very brief thought of my own, which is that Europe and Africa have had a tumultuous past over the last 200, 400 years. And we have a lot to make up for on Europe's side because of a lot of colonial histories in different nation states. But at the same time, over the last 20 to 40 years, there's been an outpour of support from Europeans for African nations, which has also been a bit misconfounded, if you ask me, because we've been looking at Africa the same way for the last few centuries, which is that we've been looking down at them rather than on an eye level. Sorry. So in essence, what happened is with development aid rather than development cooperation, we've been pouring money into African countries and sending food parcels while simultaneously using Africa as our dumping ground for our waste, and at the same time also destroying different African agricultural economies by flooding them with cheap food that we didn't need because we were overproducing due to the European cap. Now, it's no secret that certain African countries are still struggling to develop in terms of internet broadband connectivity, but at the same time, the contrast to Europe is there, because if you look at different countries in Africa, some of the countries in Africa have the cheapest and best internet connectivity in the world, whereas others have some of the worst and most expensive, where you can pay up to between $50 and $60 per gigabyte for internet access. But at the same time, if you look at Europe is no exception to this, because if you look at Belgium and Greece, we have the most expensive and least well established broadband connectivity in all of Europe and indeed in the world. So in essence, what I'm trying to say through my dying voice is that there's a lot of potential for learning from each other, because while certain African countries are still struggling with internet connectivity, it's the same thing in Europe, and it's the same thing between cities and rural areas. And we should really cooperate more on an eye-level basis and learn from each other in order to better increase our own capacities for innovation and indeed digital development, because we shouldn't think that we as Europeans are above our African neighbors and partners. Well, I'm very sorry for my losing my voice at the very last minute, but I'm hoping I could leave you with some interesting thoughts, and I'd like to pass on to Susanna Sladkova, who's going to be moderating our amazing panelists from all over the world. Susanna is a fellow at the European University Institute in Florence, and I'm hoping she'll take the word now so I can retire.
Thank you very much, Dominik. I'm happy to take over the word, but I want to ask first Anna from the European Digital Development Alliance if you would like to also introduce the second co-host organization of this event very briefly, and then I'll take over the moderation of the panel.
Thank you so much, Susanna. Thank you so much, Dominik and Julius. I'm Anna. I'm representing European Digital Development Alliance, which is a network of civil society organizations, academia, and small and medium enterprises working on digital transformation in Europe and beyond. For this event, we look forward to discuss digital challenges in Africa and how European Union can support African countries in tackling some issues related to digital skills, to connectivity of internet, which Dominik already mentioned, and to inclusivity of digital public services. We hope that by the end of this event, we will have some good ideas, which we will use for publishing a report on digital for development in the digitalization sector, which we hope will fit into the new EU-Africa strategy, which will be published ahead of the EU-Africa summit next year. So warm welcome to all of the participants. Looking forward to the great discussion, and over to you, Susanna. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anna and Dominik, for introducing the co-organizers of this very interesting, timely, and important panel in these times. I second, Dominik, what you said. We are all on the same boat, and we are all developing countries actually in this time, because we have to face the impact of digital transformation and of the fourth industrial revolution, which is actually happening, and it has a very crucial impact on different aspects of our life, working life, professional life, and personal lives. And this panel is divided into two parts. The first part is looking at the actually what happened in the EU with digital transformation and what are the lessons learned, and what are the challenges that Africa face with the digital transformation. And then we will dive deeper in the second part into the challenges of the digital transformation in Africa. Before we start, I would like to ask every speaker to stick to the time, not to talk too long, because we have currently 45 minutes left of the whole panel, and we have very interesting topics coming up. We have also the first speaker now online, which is member of the European Parliament, Eva Kaili, and soon I will give her the floor. I would just like to say the questions from the participants can be asked via Slido, and you can also vote for the questions that you actually would like to be asked at the end to the participants. So thank you very much. And now we start the first very initial part. And I would like to give floor to Eva Kaili to introduce us what are actually the lessons learned from digital transformation of the European Union and of its member states. And well, what can Africa learn out of it, not to make the same mistakes what we did, or what we are still doing? Eva Kaili, over to you. Yes, we need to unmute you. Julius, please. You're unmuted.
Thank you. So thank you so much for having me. And I like the way you're phrasing the question. So what are the mistakes to avoid? On our way to develop a digital single market. So I can tell you the obstacles we see, and hopefully we will overcome. I think it's a similar methodology and the model that you have to follow. So first, let me say that we have all announced in the first semester of are exploring also build up a digital single market, taking under consideration the need to collaborate with our neighborhood, and in order to also exchange best practices and understand how we want to move into the future in the digital era. So the main aspects of this collaboration is the green transition and the energy accessibility that goes now after the pandemic, of course, during the pandemic, with a digital transformation. So everything in Europe is happening through the digital transformation, the green transition and energy accessibility. These would help us to have sustainability and growth and jobs, to have a strong governance, and of course, respond to challenges like migration and mobility. So these are all things that we are collaborating with Africa. And I think for us, it's an emerging market and continent. We're expecting also 2 new reports from, I think one report from DEVCO the next month, in more specific ways and steps that we can enhance this collaboration. So since digital is so big, I can tell you how we are working together and how it would make it easier if we had like a similar path to find ways to strengthen this collaboration. I give you just one number because I don't like to talk with numbers, but just an example. If in Africa the digital coverage was increased to 10%, this would mean that we would have a 1% raise of the GDP. So there are some countries that they have managed to be in the same speed of the European countries. There are some countries that they are a bit more behind, and there are countries that maybe 100 people out of 1,000 have access to internet and telecommunications. So there is room and space to progress, as we all understand, and the opportunities that I see is, of course, to transform the public sector, education, health, e-commerce, and the problems that we faced, and I know Africa will face, is the barriers we have among member states, the regulatory environment, of course, and the need for harmonization. We need to have common standards. Here, I will give you one more example. For the, if you know, ECDC is the European Agency for Disease Control and Prevention. So they are gathering data to understand the pandemic and find ways to put scientists together with data, understand the patterns, and get faster to a treatment. So the data that we got, they're completely different based on different standards, sources. This has to do with the lack of digitalization of some countries, but also some sources are like media, or they are not good quality of data, or the metrics, they are not preset, which means we have 80% of the data, but they are so random and bad quality that we cannot get down to have like an understanding of the pattern and so a faster treatment. So this is really important. And these standards actually imagine if we could collaborate with Africa and have under the European values, which means we don't want the data to control or mass surveillance or like as a digital imperialism like China and US are doing, but in a way that we will respect privacy and safety, just to use them to develop understandings and offer better services and better healthcare. So imagine the potential by having access to so much data. So data and consumer protection, we need a legal framework there. We're actually working this year in Europe for the artificial intelligence ethical framework by law, and then the data strategy. the digital strategy, the digital finance, and the industrial strategy for the digital era. So these are 4 files that really are essential, and they basically include everything I said, how to remove the remaining barriers that we have, because we have different regulations, different languages, different tax systems, and harmonization has been really challenging. Under the light of the pandemic, we have managed to progress faster. And at the same time, we try to do it with respect.
Thank you very much, Eva. That was excellent introduction to the challenges.
I had 7 minutes, but yes, we can take answers.
What is happening in the EU? Now I give floor to Toto, the Deputy Director of the National Department of Science and Innovation of South Africa. And Toto will present us how he sees the challenges of digital transformation in Africa. And after Eva's presentation, if it's actually possible from his perspective to leapfrog the EU in the coming years. Toto, do we have you with us here? We had Toto before.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity as well, and good afternoon. I think with regard to challenges of digital transformation, this could be a topic that we can have for more than an hour. But I think maybe for the sake of just pointing out a few, I think I will note about maybe 3 challenges that are cross-cutting, which is the information communication technology, entrepreneurial and innovation support, but also the issue of human capital development. And when one looks at the information, the ICT, when you look on the supply side, you find that the speed of internet within the continent sort of hinders the take-up of maybe using opportunities that are provided by the 4th industrial revolution. But also on the demand side, when you look at it as well, you find that most people may not have access, or it could be a question of they do not have those similar devices. But as well, going forward, unless we have applications that are designed accordingly, that are cheap or affordable, but as well, the main thing, easy way to use so that people can meet specific needs, either consumer-wise, or it could be on research and development and other areas. And one could also say that from South Africa through the ICASA, which is the Independent Communications Authority, they've been embarking over the past few years on allocation of frequency bands of wireless communication, but also making sure that they comply in making sure that there is more access to broadband services. And significantly so, over the past few months, there's been quite a huge decrease in data costs. I'm not sure of this, but I think South Africa is one of the African countries with very high data costs. So that's one on ICT. But when you look into the other one as on the entrepreneurial innovations support system, there is limited ability to absorb external knowledge from broadly within the continent, which is now not closing, but rather broadening the gap between Africa and other continents. We do have very good universities within the country and in Africa, but I think most of them are still focused on publications, which is the way to rate how university works. And issues such as public funding, which is limited, the technology transfer, which is not happening in country at an optimal pace. So all this slow down the issue of investment in research and development throughout the continent, but also in specific areas leading to ICT. And this talks also to the transformational issue. The last point here that I would like to also to share is the issue of human capital as well as skills development. Africa has a lot of talent, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of potential, and there's also a lot of innovation that comes in the fore. But one looks into how do we take those forward? How do we make sure that they work for the continent? So that's issue that needs to be looked into, as well as to make sure that there are sound policies in the field of human capital development, but also there's overall scarcity of, or maybe overall long-term planning, as well as reform. And this by mean that more collaboration between Africa and as well as the Europe and other continents to make sure that there is no more competition, there is more collaboration, as well as making sure that digital skills and future work of ICT is taken into consideration as one of the ways to make sure that there is more transformation, there is more capacity building, as well as making sure that the countries conform to certain standard, and as a result, the benefit will be more to the people on the ground. So yeah, I'll pause here for now.
Thank you very much, Toto. But if you have your crystal ball with you and you look at the future, do you think that African continent can actually, in digital transformation, leapfrog the European Union?
I think for me, it's not a question of Africa to leapfrog the EU, or maybe the EU to increase space. And I think this is where the issue of science diplomacy come in, where countries do not compete anymore, or continents do not compete anymore. Increased issue of collaboration. I think it's Dominik also, when they started, talked about issue of Africa previously being sort of maybe the dumping ground for most outputs. And those are areas that when there is perfect research and development collaboration, where there is mutual benefit in terms of donor funding, where there is a lot of angel investments on both on the African continent. So the issue will be to upscale what the standard where Africa is. It's a known fact that there is more focus on research and innovation within the EU, which is just been established over a quite period of time. And with initiatives that the EU or the Commission is putting on Africa, like your Africa Connect project. So those are initiatives that will put Africa in a better position. But I would not want to focus on Africa going ahead or maybe being better than the EU. For me, it's a question of how do we create synergy, cooperation, as well as making sure that there is those benefits for both the continents. The world it's a globe now. There's free movement of people from one continent to the other. So we should use that accessibility to make sure that there is benefit for everyone. There is development aid that is still coming to Africa, and to make sure that the initiatives that were created over a period of time benefit all.
Thank you, Toto. And this was a very good call for our two next speakers, Lars, Erik, and Benjamin from the Commission, from the European Commission, DG DEVCO and DG Connect, and to tell us how is actually the EU going to cooperate with the African countries on the investments in research and development to support the human capital and the digital skills, and in general, how the EU is going to help Africa to face the digital challenges. Lars, Erik, and Benjamin, over to you now.
Okay, now I'm unmuted, I think. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, okay, sorry. So I'm Erik Forsberg. I'm the Deputy Head of Unit in the International Unit in, which is our DG Connect, which is our digital, or what I say, policy and also research innovation Director General in the Commission. And we work enormously with DG DEVCO, so I take the opportunity to start discussing, to start presenting. I've been there for quite some time to try to work with Africa. And we have had a long journey to put digitalization on the agenda in cooperation between us and particularly the African Union. I will keep myself very short because I know that many others will like to speak. But one thing that I just want to show you, and I can show it like this, and you can find it on the internet, is a report that a task force that we set up a couple of years ago, which reported now a little bit more than a year ago on EU-Africa, or EU-AU digital economy partnership, because we would like to build a partnership. Now, how do we see this? At this moment, we have a very, what would I say, a very geopolitical world, and digitalization in the world is very politicized in many ways. Now, I think we share in the European Union, together with the African Union, a vision of bringing the human being in the center of this development, both in terms of development, digital development of the economy and society. So putting the human being in center, sharing and putting very high up on the agenda the fact that we are and we want to remain democracies, and also to take care of both European and African interests in this partnership. So these are issues that is important for both of us. Now, this report, this task force came up with a number of ideas and thoughts, which we are now going to try to implement together with our friends, of course, in the development, which now is not called development anymore, but INTPA, which is in international partnerships. So I leave it to him, to my colleague, to give you a little bit more ideas around that. But one thing that I wanted to say, which is extremely important now, is that as follow-up of this this task force, the way of working with between 20 Europeans and 20 Africans, we are now trying to set up something that we call the Digital Development Hub. And this hub will be a possibility, will be a platform for Africans and Europeans to both in the private and the public sector cooperate on where Europe and Africa can be strongest. And as always, the European Union, I think, has to remind ourselves, Africa is our closest neighbor. Africa is on the top of investments, in top of our trade agenda, and it's obviously also on the top of our development agenda. But this also gives the European Union a certain strength in its cooperation with Africa compared with the United States or China, which doesn't share this human-centric approach to the development of the digital economy. But I just want to come back to the hub, because I think that everybody around the in this seminar here today has an interest possibly to join this this hub. It's going to be launched hopefully already this autumn, and it's going to also host a number of other initiatives. including something that we have just done, which is setting up an innovation bridge between Africa and Europe. And we have just had a call which has resulted in a lot of very good cooperation, a call on digital innovation hubs. And also, what we are also trying to come forward right now is, and it's been mentioned much before, cooperation on data. Because we know that data is extremely important. It's important for the European Union, it is important for Africa. Africa needs data, and it needs a data economy, which actually corresponds to the needs of Africans. And first of all, it is the Africans who should benefit from all the data that is generated in Africa, just like we in European Union would like to also benefit from our data and have an exchange, of course, with Africa on this. But as it stands today, and this I think is a major problem in Africa, is the fact that there is a lot of data mining. Data by Facebook, data by Google, data by Alibaba, etc., does not stay in Africa, and is not and Africa is not being able at the moment to build up data spaces. This is something that we are trying to do in the European Union, because we are a little bit in the same boat as the Africans on this issue. That European data is always often processed by some other powers in the world. So I think this is another place also where we would like to cooperate. Obviously, it's very important for the European Union when it comes to everything that is security on the internet. Both in terms of defense issues, but obviously also, and that I underline, privacy on the internet and the right for individuals to the privacy. I stop at that because I could continue for ages, but I probably will have a few, and I'm happy to answer questions after this. So over.
Thank you very much, Lars, Erik. And do we have Benjamin here from DG INTPA, International Partnership?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ben.
Wonderful.
We cannot see you.
There's a problem with the camera.
Okay.
I'll just speak, and I hope that my voice will be heard well. Okay, Benjamin Hecker. I'm now a little bit complimenting what Lars has said. Hello, Lars. I also know him. I'm working for DG DEVCO, Development Cooperation, International Cooperation, and I'm more focusing on the financial issues. So here I'm working on guarantee programs. I'm working on the external investment plan that you all have to know, I guess. And also, I want to start by complimenting a little bit on the D4D Hub, which of course for us is one of our major priorities. We are trying to ensure that there is a Team Europe approach for this D4D Hub. And we are in a startup phase with some of our EU member states in order to facilitate 3 objectives. The first is a joint initiative for mainstreaming D4D at national level. The second one is a pilot initiative, D4D methodologies approach. And the third one is a multi-stakeholder dialogue for that we are doing at the moment. And of course, we have certain analysis and dialogue on the country and regional level, and this is all also under the current German presidency. But me, I want to focus more because I also very much like what Toto has mentioned about the fact that it's not only about more knowledge sharing and methodology in Africa, but it also requires an approach on the financial level. And in the external investment plan, we have understood that, and this is also reflected in the investment windows that we apply for our guarantee. We have a guarantee of 1.54 billion euros that we can use in our partner countries, mostly in neighborhood and Africa. So Africa is the most benefiting part. And this guarantee enables us to operate with development banks in 4 different sectors. It's sustainable energy, MSME financing, sustainable agriculture, and digitalization. And then there is a sub level of sustainable cities. And I would like to focus on one of our products, which is actually a guarantee that we are providing to FMO Development Bank, because this, I think, exemplifies a little bit the issue that we are having with digitalization in Africa. So in this FMO Ventures, that is called, it was signed in November 2019. We actually addressed the issue of a lack of risk capital for the underserved segment of digital markets in Africa by providing venture capital for fintech, which then is channeled through different venture capital funds in Africa. And what we at the Commission do, we provide a guarantee for FMO to provide a first loss guarantee to venture capital funds. So in this respect, we have a total of 150 million that will be provided. And the interesting thing about this very innovative financing product is that we provide financing in a direct and in an indirect way. So there are different that you all know, like venture capital funds on the ground in Africa that have been operated for some time, but they have often shied away from investing in countries that also in our digitalization approach are very important. These are the frontier markets. So of course, we have certain countries in Africa where investments are going well, but there are also some countries which need more financing from these venture capital funds. And this is why we try to push development banks to take higher risk by going into these markets that are underserved. And this is exactly what's happening with these FMO ventures. I really recommend you to take a look. I can also afterwards send a link about this project because it's one of different examples that we are at the moment working on. It's quite new to provide the African market with different systems. So of course, it's not only about the digital service and e-government, but we also look for these small and micro enterprises to generate some profit through being supported by these venture capital funds. And for us, which is important at DEVCO, is that we have this aspect of geographization. So to go more into fragile countries, from what I can see on the financial side, it's quite difficult to push the development banks, but also our private sector partners into those countries. But only then do we have a DACability aspect, which is also very important for us. And only then do we suppose that there is this fintech market that is to be further developed. And what we create is like a network of trust in Africa by ensuring that if those venture capital funds and also the private sector come together and say, okay, let's do these investments in even fragile markets, we in a way stimulate the market from different sides. We have had tons of private sector actors who have said, okay, we're gonna come in for a second loss or third loss. So
can I ask you about this, the geographization of aid, and also you mentioned at the beginning of your intervention the multi-stakeholder partnership, and Lars, Erik also mentioned it. I have a question. I mean, you work on the finances side, I guess, mostly with the private sector. But the private sector is not the only actor important in the digital transformation. My question is, how are you going to diversify in the next MFF the funding that you actually support all the stakeholders in the ground to be able to face digital transformation and also to help the countries and the societies in the countries to go through the digital transformation?
I think I have to contradict you in the respect that for us in this part where I work in the financial part, the private sector is key. But of course, we have lots of initiatives, and I'm happy to talk about that at another occasion. We have lots of different initiatives and partnerships from the DEVCO side, where we try to enable also the cooperation on the member states level, and then together in the MFF, of course, we have a high contribution from our side. Let me just try to get some more information and figures on that. To follow up on our 4 policy strands of work, the governance, digital connectivity, skills and entrepreneurship, and e-service. So these are our 4 digital responses also to COVID-19, but which are also our strands of work to work in the MFF. But I would argue that private sector is very crucial, because what we see when we work with the private sector in Africa, that there is a lack of financing. There is a huge demand from SMEs and MSMEs to receive finance to develop the digital transformation. And the external investment plan mostly focuses on the private sector in the Middle East and Africa. And in this regard, we are looking forward to improve the financing situation there.
Thank you very much. Now we have Priscilla among us. She is the head of digital and technology of ActionAid, of one of the ActionAid offices in Africa. So you're directly from the civil society. Priscilla, how do you see the challenges of digital transformation in Africa?
Hello, Susanna and everybody. I think there's a myriad of interrelated challenges facing Africa's digital transformation. And please forgive me when I use the word Africa, because countries, and that presents more complexity and customization of solutions that we can delve into here. But I think in terms of challenges, I'll start with the inadequate investment in technology infrastructure. In most cases, we see that investments go to the more traditional infrastructure projects like roads and bridges, the big ticket items for governments, and we forget that technology has a big role to play. And in most cases, even when we see resources being committed to technology, corruption, a lack of transparency and accountability lead to only a fraction of the intended results being realized. We saw this when countries allocated the Universal Access Fund in different formats, and you couldn't really point to where all those resources went in most cases. So this could also be attributed to maybe a lack of clarity at the highest levels in terms of how a digital economy can contribute to national plans. And maybe we need to start working on making sure that the people at the highest levels have some very clear numbers, some very clear evidence on how this makes a difference. And now the worry is that with the rising debt crisis that we have in many African countries that we're all aware of, and the global nature of the COVID-19 pandemic, we will likely see a lot of a strain on resources and a lot of pressure for governments to shift resources to other sectors such as health. This is a very real risk and we can't overstate it, but we also have to be very clear that digital does have a critical role to play, particularly when you have shrinking resources in making sure that sectors such as health, education, and various other economic opportunities sort of achieve better results. So that's what I would think the challenges are. There are many. I could go on and on, but I think it would be interesting to focus more on the opportunities and what we need to start to do.
Thank you very much. And opportunities. We have Onica as our next speaker, and we're actually now entering the second part of our debate. Onica, you're from the Alliance for Affordable Internet, and you are the African coordinator. Do we have Onica with us?
Yes.
And the question to her is actually how to make internet and technologies such available for everyone.
Wow, yeah, so I mean, it's a major, we've got some major challenges, but along with the challenges, there's some great opportunities. We are at a point where about just a little over half of the world's population is now online. But in our continent, that number does not quite look like that yet. We're not quite at the 50% mark. And what's really unfortunate is that the people who are currently unconnected are the ones who need to be, who stand to gain the most in terms of being able to transform their lives and solve problems within their communities by actually being connected. So what actually we need is political will first to connect the unconnected. We need to invest in connecting rural areas. So having a very clear rural broadband policy framework that is sustainable for us to make sure that we are reaching out to the outskirts and truly investing in connecting everyone. But this requires investment beyond just infrastructure. The most recent report from the World Bank on the Moonshot report estimates that Africa needs about $109 billion to connect the entire continent, basically. And this is not just infrastructure, but it also is about investment in digital skills. We need the global community as well as us as Africans to invest in digital skills and local content development. This includes local content in our own local languages. And I think this is a conversation we need to have, especially in forums like these ones where we are speaking with our European counterparts around the fact that, you know, we want everyone to be online, but we have not really done enough to invest in local content to make a compelling case and create that demand side for people to want to be online. And preserving our languages and providing resources and content in local languages is a really important part for us to be able to have people who have the right skills, who are connected, but also are able to be effective digital citizens. So I will basically just wrap this up by saying that, you know, we need to invest, we need to cooperate, we need to partner, and we need to measure our results to ensure that all of the benefits, they benefit everyone equally and equitably, in order for us to have access to affordable internet where no one spends more than 2% of average monthly income on 1 gig of data, as well as meaningful access, meaning that they have the right skills to connect meaningfully, they have the right speed, they have the access, the frequency, and the affordable devices as well. I'll leave it at that for now, and you know, hopefully we'll have a chance to come back and elaborate a little bit more on this.
Thank you very much, Onica. Well done on the 3 minutes. And on your messages, summarizing, very clear. I liked very much the political will to connect the unconnected. And I give floor now to Kelly from LearnHub Africa to explain us actually how to develop digital skills of everyone so that we get on board with digital transformation. Kelly, do we have you with us?
Great. My unmute is back up now. All right, great. So yeah, digital skills are pivotal to us being able to achieve our digital transformation plan. Because without digital skills, the digital transformation plan is not going to have the workforce or the momentum needed to drive it. So what we need is, we need to start from the elementary level, which to drive STEM education. That is something that is still lacking at our curriculum. So education, not just education, infusing STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also arts, into the younger generation, so they understand at a conceptual level what the possibilities of the fourth industrial revolution is going to look like, because these are people who are going to live with in a world of smart cities, in a world where artificial intelligence is going to be a pivotal part of their life, in a world where IoTs and virtual realities are going to be a reality. So we need to start providing them that context, providing them the education they need and the knowledge they need to be able to function within this space. So how do we really get to that level where we can say we are driving digital?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think we lost Kelly.
Yes, sadly.
Yeah, so do we have Emmanuel with us, our last speaker? Emmanuel?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I mean, you can also complement Kelly's question and also tell us how to make digital transformation work for everyone, that no one is left behind. And you are from Challenges Group Rwanda.
All right, thank you very much. Like, just to complement on what Onica said, it's just straightforward. If you need digital transformation for everyone, obviously you want to make sure that the population themselves, they understand even digital platforms in their local languages, for example. I personally think that when you're having digital transformation, especially in rural communities, there has to be really some search engines where a rural person who doesn't have education, who's going to understand how to use a particular services. For example, you know, all of you, I'm from Rwanda, and some of the key initiatives that the government have done is to make sure that everyone can access government services online. And they're all in multiple languages, English, French, Swahili, and all the, I would say, all the official languages. So this is one of the solutions as to why people should really access all this information online and can be accessible also into their local languages. I also really strongly believe that digital transformation is really needed. It needs a tangible investment. Also, government people have to really invest massively. I really think that, for example, one of the solutions that Initiative Rwanda have implemented is to connect Rwanda through a challenge of giving free cell phones to people who have access to it. So this is an initiative that really going for people who have access to resources to pledge some smartphone for someone in a rural village who doesn't have access to it. And I think this is one of the initiatives that really more African countries needs to take to make sure that digital transformation is also being reached to even to rural communities that most times are left out. And maybe one last thing that I can finish up with is to really also, I think more African countries invest heavily into innovative ecosystems. Here we have a very good example of a German in partnership with Rwanda, where they invested heavily into a digital center, where they invest into different initiatives from different backgrounds, cities, rural communities, where they come up with different initiatives and they get funding. So this is also another way of also investing heavily into the community, as well as to make sure that the population themselves are the first one to understand this is for them and they should be part of them to take initiatives. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're coming to an end of our debate, but before we come to an end and we give floor for the questions from the Slido, we have both groups. We have Lars, Erik, and Benjamin from the EU, from the Commission, actually, the one that actually sit on the main decisions and also on the funding. And then we have all these amazing people from the African continent. If there is one message, Emmanuel, Onica, Kaili, and Toto, Priscilla, what it would be a message that you want to see the EU to do next 7, 10, 15 years? So what Lars, Erik, and Benjamin should do to actually help with your work that you are doing?
Can I go first?
Yes, you can.
I will give one. I know my fellow panelists will give a lot more, but I think one of the things we need to do is work on opening up borders, both within the African continent, but across Africa and Europe, in that we need to start making sure that there's knowledge transfer, that even as Emmanuel talked about rural communities, that we are helping everyone understand the possibilities that exist there. We are making sure that when we are designing solutions, they're not being designed in our nice meeting rooms, but that the people who are living those realities of inequality are actually the ones designing the solutions to their problems. But for them to effectively do that, they need to know what exists, what possibilities are there. So that would be the one thing I would say.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. Who wants to go next?
Okay. I'll go next. I think we opened really well. I believe it was Dominik who talked about the history of Africa and Europe. And I think that with the internet, we have an opportunity to begin to change and transform that history. You know, there's a bit of a small movement around decolonizing the internet. So for me, the issue around content and localization of content development is really important. It also does what Priscilla just spoke about, and that is allow us and gives us space to innovate around our realities. You know, perhaps the next Amazon of Africa or the next Uber of Africa doesn't quite look anything like the Amazon that we see right now. It may actually look more like something like Makola Market in Ghana. So how do we give each other the space to support each other, but to really understand that, you know, it's about local content, local problems, local solutions for those, you know, challenges, so that we are innovating around Africa's realities without sort of feeling like we need to continuously copy what's already being done. And I think Europe is in a good position in relation to Africa in terms of, you know, we get to be growing together in this digital revolution because we can't ignore the fact that some of the innovations actually began in this continent. When you look at mobile money, for example, Africans actually led the route to mobile money. And so we have an opportunity to learn from each other in a way that is more cyclical as opposed to one-directional.
Thank you, Onica. Emmanuel, would you like to compliment Priscilla and Onica? If not, I take the most voted question from Slido that all of you. Yes, Emmanuel.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Anyway, so I just wanted to basically really compliment my other colleagues, Onica. It's just simple. I think it will be really interesting if we have a platform where everyone can share ideas and not just someone from somewhere in Europe just giving us a final decision what things how should be done. I think it would be really interesting how we can go far when we actually have these discussions and making sure that we have both perspectives around certain issue, and then actually have a solution that is actually coming from both perspectives and equally shared. I think that would be really good for both parties. And as also, I feel like there's a room for learning from different parts, and also to making sure that different initiatives can be tested either in Europe or in Africa to make sure that we're having an equal enabler ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we give floor to Lars, Erik, and Ben. But we have a question from Slido. I hope you all open the Slido and ask the question or voted for the question. So I'm taking the question that has most votes. So the questions to Lars, Erik, and Ben is: digital cooperation between Africa and the EU cannot be one-way street. And that was already said several times here. But the question stands: how can we improve Europeans' knowledge of African society and collaboration opportunities? Lars, Erik, and Ben, over to you. Do we have still Lars, Erik here?
Unmute. Okay, now it works. Does it work now?
Yes, it works. Lars, Erik, have you heard the question?
You have to allow me to speak, otherwise it doesn't work. I think on this last thing, I think this is not, and I think this is underlined very strongly for a couple of years now. This is not a partnership which should be what I say, one street, one road. Obviously, I think we have a lot of experience in the European Union. I mean, and we have been working on breaking down, somebody talked about breaking down borders. I mean, we've been working on breaking down borders through the digital single market in the European Union. Of course, we must be also true to ourselves when we say Africa is, we are 27 member states. Africa is 54 member states in the African Union. And it's a much more complex situation that we have in Africa. And of course, the harmonization of standards and rules, which Eva talked about in the beginning, is of course on what I say, a lower stage. That being said, there's probably much less standards and rules. So Africa can probably from the very beginning start putting rules on the market, putting rules in the bigger context together instead of fragmentizing and taking rules in each and every place. But definitely one of the objectives that we have from the European Union is to support this endeavor in Africa, to build a single digital market in Africa from the very start. So this is really important for us. Absolutely on content, I think it is. I just wanted to say also that we didn't mention content, but it's part of this. The African. We are happy to work with Africa on building bridges between the European Union and Africa. But for the European Union, I think the most important thing is that there is an African digital economy and society for Africans, and definitely to have content on the internet which relates only to the specific situation, whether they're local or they are sub-regional, like for instance in ECOWAS or even Pan-African. Solutions have to be African from the very beginning. We have some things that we think is very important for us to build and to support Africa. That is that the approach is human-centric, that is based on democratic values, that we have, that we build African and of course European interests together on both the African and the European market. But when I've been working for this for quite some time, and I just wanted to end at that. When I see the extraordinary startup community ecosystems that exist in Africa, the enormous capacities and ideas of young Africans, I think there is a place where Africa can absolutely teach us enormous amount of things. And to work together on digitalization with Africa should be as aspiring for the European Union as it is for Africa. And this call that we just had under Horizon 2020, which is supposed to be cooperation between digital innovation hubs between Africa and Europe, is definitely not a one-way stream. It is very much a two-way stream. I mean, we have enormous amount of ideas, thoughts, ways of handling complex situations in Africa. And the innovation capacity of young people, particularly in Africa, is enormous. So I just want to stop at that because I think it is really important that we don't see this as a one-way cooperation.
Thank you very much, Lars, Erik. We are 10 minutes over time. I would like to thank everyone for this very inspiring debate, and it's a pity that we cannot go a bit longer and continue because there are still issues and different topics that we would love to discuss with you and hear your experience and share your knowledge with us. But unfortunately, the time is pressing. Now I give floor to Anna, to close this debate and to tell us the key messages and the next steps.
Thank you so much, Zuzana. Thank you so much, dear speakers and participants. It was a great event, lots of great insights, which we will use for the report, which will be published next year ahead of the EU-Africa Summit. And we hope that with this report, we will be able to influence the new EU-Africa strategy in the area of digitalization. Thank you so much. We will stay in touch with all of you. I wish you a great day. Thank you, and yeah, hopefully see you during our next events. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you once again, and hope to see you and collaborate with you in the future. Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you want to watch the replay, you need to click this link.
We need to stop the stream, I think.
Otherwise,
I think we need to do that because you're done.
Great.
And of course, my voice has returned now. This is perfect timing.